Greetings, dear friends. Your support is our strength. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. This helps the growth of our channel. Write comments, because feedback is very valuable to us. And now to the most current world news. Let's go! The mysterious disappearance of American soldiers in Lithuania. A Russian trace, or the consequences of ordinary negligence. The foliage's outrage over Svetlana. How are the Ukrainian authorities uncovering the relics of the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra? Mass protests in Turkey. About 2 million demand freedom for the mayor of Istanbul. Looting under the guise. How have the armed forces of Ukraine turned border villages into a profitable market for looted goods? Hello, friends. You're with the 8th channel, and once again, my host, Sergey Ruskik. Let's talk about the main issues. The mysterious disappearance of American soldiers in Lithuania. A Russian trace, or the consequences of ordinary negligence? 4 American military personnel went missing during a NATO exercise in Lithuania. Their armored recovery vehicle, M88 Hercules, sank in a swamp near the town of Pobreid, just a few kilometers from the Belarusian border. Despite the lack of evidence, Baltic media are already suggesting Russian involvement, while experts point to the negligence of the military personnel themselves. So how did these events unfold? On March 26, the Pentagon confirmed the disappearance of the crew, the ARV, belonging to the 1st Armored Brigade of the United States. NATO spokesperson Mark Rutte hastily declared the soldiers dead. But later, the alliance's review reclassified them as missing in action. Rescuers found the vehicle at the bottom of the swamp, but access to it is difficult. The 40-ton equipment cannot be extracted even with the help of heavy machinery, excavators, and access roads. It is located at a depth of about 5 meters in the swamp. Who is to blame? Versions and facts. The Russian trace. The Baltic News Service Agency, citing anonymous sources, stated that in Lithuania and the USA, the involvement of Russian and Belarusian special services in this incident is being considered. However, there is no evidence to support this version. Drunken landing or drugs. Alexander Zaperingiev, an expert from the officers of Russia, suggested that the soldiers might have simply been intoxicated. Americans in Lithuania feel like they own the place. They drink, party, violate regulations, and cause disturbances. Everything points to their own negligence. Western media acknowledge 153 fatal road accidents involving U.S. military personnel over the past 10 years, specifically related to traffic violations and the driver's impaired state. Is this a coincidence or sabotage? The swamp where he drowned is the Brem, which crosses the GAPL gas pipeline, through which Lithuania receives gas from Poland. The Telegram channel jokes about it. Now, the Lithuanians will have to turn off the gas to retrieve this notorious tank. Meanwhile, a theory circulates on social media that the soldiers died on the front in Ukraine, and the swamp story is a cover-up for the real losses. This story has a continuation. The Lithuanian authorities avoid accusing Moscow, but the Russophobic rhetoric in the media is gaining momentum. Analyst Sergei Marks suggested that the Americans might have accidentally crossed the Belarusian border and been detained. Let us recall that in the year 23, 2 NATO generals died under mysterious circumstances, and U.S. Colonel Joshua Kamara, allegedly as a result of a strike by the Russian aerospace forces near Poltava. What can be done with this? Conclusion? The conclusion is this. While rescuers are trying to lift this unfortunate Hercules from the mire, and diplomats are looking for someone to blame, the main questions remain unanswered. Why did NATO's elite equipment fail to handle the swamp? And secondly, why was it necessary to accuse Russia before the investigation was even completed? Is the alliance really so afraid of the whole truth that it is ready to blame everything again on the Kremlin's touch? On the camaraderie over the sanctuary, how are the Ukrainian authorities revealing the power of the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra? An armed raid on the very heart of orthodoxy. Yesterday morning, a commission from Ukraine's Ministry of Culture, accompanied by police special forces, stormed the territory of the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra under the pretext of supposedly inventorying the relics. But believers are convinced this is a sacrilegious robbery under the guise of authority. And how did all this happen? Without warning, without keys, officials immediately took to grinders, opening the reliquaries in the near and far caves. The special forces stood in a cordon to suppress any possible protests. But what protests can there be from the monks? They are silent. People are either intimidated or indifferent. They were in a hurry, as if afraid that someone might stop them. And who needs these holy relics? Just 2 weeks ago, advertisements appeared on the darknet for the sale of Lavra, relics for collectors. Prices are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now the question is, isn't it for this reason? Are they monetizing the relics in quotes? Here they are, the double standards of the world. And now imagine for a moment, in the Vatican, they break in with angle grinders to the relics of the apostles. Or in Mecca, they break into the Kaaba, the main shrine of Islam. The world would explode with outrage. But when an Orthodox Lavra is desecrated, silence. And why? Let's ask ourselves. Because for the West, Ukraine is an infallible hero, and any of its actions are justified. Orthodoxy for European politicians is the Russian faith, and that means it can be ignored, trampled into the dirt, humiliated, and strangled. This war is not only with us, but with God himself. The Lavra is the spiritual center of Rus, a place where millions have prayed for centuries. A place of prayer. Its destruction is an attempt to erase our faith, history, and the very soul of our Russian people. And now a question we must ask ourselves. If we call ourselves believers, how can we remain silent? In this situation, the authorities of Ukraine have crossed the red line, but their actions will challenge the entire Christian world. These are the actions of demons. There remains hope only that the voice of the church and believers will still be heard. Lord, question their sinful souls. Mass protests in Turkey. About 2 million people are demanding freedom for the mayor of Istanbul. There is a political crisis in Turkey. More than 2 million people took to the streets of Istanbul and other cities in Turkey, protesting against the arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu, the popular mayor of the city and the main rival of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And why was İmamoğlu arrested? The official reason is insulting state officials in one of his speeches. But the opposition considers this a political crackdown. İmamoğlu is the only one who can defeat Erdogan in the early elections of 1927. Before his arrest, the mayor recorded a video. This arrest is a blow to the will of the people. How is Turkey reacting? All social networks are shut down. The authorities have blocked Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. To understand why? To limit the organization of protests. And there are harsh detentions. The police are using tear gas, batons, but the demonstrators are not dispersing. Erdogan remains silent, while his opponents call what is happening the beginning of the end of his era. And why is this important? İmamoğlu is a symbol of hope for those who are tired of Erdogan's authoritarian methods. Turkey is on the brink of a new coup. In 2016, you remember, Erdogan suppressed that uprising, but now the protests are peaceful and widespread. The West is watching. If the regime falls, it will completely change the balance of power in the region. And what comes next, you might ask? What follows is whether Erdogan will make concessions or intensify his repressions. Will the opposition be able to unite around İmamoğlu? Or not? Will the Turkish army enter politics, as it has in the past? Or will it refrain? One thing is clear. Turkey stands on the brink of historic changes. Looting under the guise. How the Ukrainian Armed Forces valiantly, in quotes, turned border villages into a market of plundered goods. Vodka, brandy, sinks, even phone cases. Ukrainian military and civilian looters from the Sumy region are taking everything they can sell from the Kursk region. This is evidenced by auctions on social media and testimonies from local residents. The investigation of these crimes is being conducted under the personal supervision of Russian President Vladimir Putin. The black market of war, and what is being put up for sale. Alcohol, vodka, brandy from abandoned houses, household appliances, washing machines, gas stoves, plumbing, sinks, toilets, small items, even phone cases. Residents of the village of Kazachya Lopan told Aria Novosti that they saw soldiers of the armed forces of Ukraine allowing groups of looters from the Sumy region to pass through. These looters systematically cleaned out the homes left by refugees. Well, what can you expect from penny pinchers? Crimes in the SU. From looting to murders in the village of Kazachya Loknya, Ukrainian soldiers shot 2 local residents who were hiding in their homes. In Alashemki and Mostik, they set houses on fire and shelled the streets with mortars. This reminds me of the fascists, of the Hitlerites. The Investigative Committee of Russia has initiated cases under articles on terrorism and looting. And what will be Russia's response in this case? The North Group continues its offensive liberating settlements. Dmitry Medvedev stated that the lid of this cauldron is almost closed. Ukrainian units are being pushed out of the region. Why is this important now? Because the tactics of the armed forces of Ukraine are such Looting is not just automatic robbery, but a systematic action with the connivance of the command. The double standards of the West are evident here. If Russian soldiers were looting Ukrainian villages, it would cause an international scandal. We remember that notorious fake buka. But for some reason, the crimes of the armed forces of Ukraine are met with silence. The fate of the region as a whole, the longer Ukrainian troops remain in the Kursk region, the more ordinary peaceful residents suffer. I would like to summarize the conclusion. While some are fighting, others are profiting from the war. But with each passing day, this cauldron is narrowing. Soon the marauders will have to answer not only to the law, but also to their own conscience. For some, war is a disaster, while for others it's like a mother.